Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In this video I'll be bringing you your complete Char B1 Ter review. I'll go over its stats, how to play it, its pros and cons, and give you a final recommendation on if you should purchase it. This might well be the most complete and informative review of this tank anywhere online. I'll go over most everything and then some. That said, let's get into it. First, let's go over its stats from Realistic. I'll go over its stat card and then give win-loss stats as well as kill stats. It has a 75mm cannon mounted in the front in a casemate and gets 64mm of armor pen with AP-HE ammo and a limited turret traverse. The cannon on top is a 47mm cannon with full but slow turret traverse and gives 62mm of armor pen via solid shot ammo. The 47mm on top has between 7 and 10 degrees of turret traverse per second depending on crew experience. It also has excellent vertical turret movement. Further, for reload, it has between 5.2 seconds and 4 seconds reload time for the 47mm, again depending on crew experience. The 75mm reloads about half as quickly as the 47mm. For armor, it has tons of this BR, with 70mm, 70mm, and 55mm hull armor at the front, sides, and rear of the tank, and 56mm all around on the turret. This is almost universally better than the B1 BIS, all while being at the same exact BR. Additionally, the armor, despite being more powerful, is full of weird weak spots that make it difficult to kill. Check out my weak spot video for the B1 Ter and BIS linked below. Additionally, it's 10% faster than the BIS due to a more powerful engine. Additionally, for win and kill rates, the stats are as follows, according to Thunderskill. For the B1 Ter, out of 1,069 matches played in Realistic, it has a 73.04% win rate and a 62.25% win rate for Arcade with fewer matches played, compared to the BIS, which has a 55.74% win rate in Realistic and a 52.62% win rate in Arcade. These win stats alone will tell you that the Ter is a difference maker, even more so than the BIS. I'll go over why in just a moment. For kills, it's just as startling. The Ter has 5.35 ground frags per battle in Realistic and 4.15 in Arcade, whereas the BIS has only 2.99 in Realistic and 1.37 in Arcade. Frags are counted as both kills and assists. For my own stats, between Arcade and Realistic, I have a 79% win rate with the Ter and a 9.27 KD, not including assists. It has been an insane tank for me. This said, the B1 Ter is absolutely one of the best tanks to use as a breakthrough tank in any scenario and on any map at any BR. The frontal armor combined with all the weird angles makes it an absolute terror to kill. Not only do few tanks have the cannons necessary to pen the weak spots on the front at around 2.3 BR, but very few people actually know where the weak spots are. This means that you can easily take this tank and be right in the middle of the action. Seriously, it's that simple. You will probably take upwards of 20 to 30 shots in a match without taking serious damage, so long as you do not get flanked or up-tiered. Even still, if you get flanked, it is not necessarily a death sentence, as shown by this guy. But, jokes aside, this tank is one of the most survivable at any BR, largely thanks to its large, somewhat open interior, number of crew, having the loader totally separate from the rest of the crew, difficult to find weak spots, high armor, and something that most people forget about, the fact that most tanks operating at this BR only use solid shot AP, which makes it very difficult to do more than minimal damage to the Ter, even if you pen it. Its cannons, especially the 75mm, are deadly, even though they aren't too amazing. They can penetrate most tanks, and if you can pen with the 75mm, even kill some tanks in one shot. If you can't pen a tank, no issue, just get out of there, which should be somewhat easy considering the armor on the Ter. Ultimately though, try not to flank with the Ter as it sometimes leads to getting your sides exposed. If you can have most of the fire hitting the front of the hull, especially at an angle, and even more so at a distance, you will be essentially invulnerable and able to get kills and assists at will. I have almost single-handedly won matches this way with the Ter. If you like football, it's kind of like having Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, or Drew Brees on your team when they were all in their primes. Now, for pros and cons, I'll start off with the pros. It has 2 cannons, with both being decent if nothing else. The 75mm has 5 times the turret traverse capability of the BIS, with 10 degrees of turret traverse as opposed to 2 degrees on the BIS. It also has incredible armor for BR 2.3. Additionally, it has decent speed, which is actually better than the BIS as mentioned before. It sits at a very favorable BR, which is currently at 2.3. It would still be pretty competent if moved to 2.7. It also has 5 crew members, with the loader sitting in the back, separated by a firewall from the rest of the crew, meaning that there is typically at least one guy left in the event of a crew kill. For another pro, it has armored tracks, and these will not break nearly as easily, even when compared to the BIS. Additionally, there is a ridiculous return on investment. For just around $10 worth of Golden Eagles, or $10 flat if you buy the French starter pack, you can get the B1 Ter and the French P40 F5 if you buy the starter pack. It is almost guaranteed that you'll make 15,000 Silver Lions per match without premium, and 30,000 Silver Lions or more with it. It is that good. For another pro, no one knows where to hit. Because this is so similar looking to the BIS, the untrained eye might think that it is a BIS and won't be successful in fighting it. The B1 Ter is unlike almost every other vehicle in-game, and very few people know how to properly counter it. Again, my B1 Ter weak spot guide is linked below. And finally, it has premium bonuses for both RP and Silver Lions. This means that it will help you research far into the ground tech tree for the French. Now for the cons, there are a few and they are somewhat minor, but they still exist. To start, both cannons are adequate but nothing more. When facing higher BR enemies, you'll need more and more side shots to take them out rather than taking them on from the front with similar or lower BR enemies. It also has subpar ammo options. Your much faster firing 47mm is going to be solid shot AP, while the 75mm has APHE. The 75mm is better, but also is more difficult to use. It can be a lifesaver, however, in close quarters. Now, though it is somewhat quick in a straight line, it turns very slowly and its turret traverse is arguably even slower, leaving it very much vulnerable to powerful light and medium tanks. And, as mentioned before, the 75mm can be your savior, but again, it is difficult to master. Additionally, for another con, the weak spots are big enough where if someone knows where they are, you'll go from being a super tank to subpar in just a few seconds. And finally, it's a high profile and obvious target. People will go after you and will try to take you out first, whether by ground or air. When playing, you'll be a very popular target for airplanes. 2 final things to note before my final recommendation about the Ter are that, for one, it has a much wider traverse than the 75mm when compared to the BIS. It can traverse several times as much, meaning that it functions much less like a case-mated cannon, like a normal TD, and more similarly to the M3 Lee. As you can see here, the B1 Ter is much more efficient with the 75mm cannon. Additionally, it, along with the BIS, has a vertical cannon stabilizer for the 47mm cannon that is effective up to 8 km per hour. Not so coincidentally, this is also the speed that the tank moves as CC or Cruise Control 1. So that said, the B1 Ter is an absolute gem to play and a terror to face. It has good enough cannons matched with good enough speed, all while being protected by ridiculous armor. It is about as good of a tank at its BR as any in the game. If you end up purchasing it, you'll find yourself oftentimes being unstoppable, which is not something that can be said of most tanks. It's almost like being in a mini mouse when the mouse first was released in the game before crazy ammo and missiles could one-shot it. The Ter is arguably the best tank of any BR in the game and can match up with almost anyone that it faces. In theory, it is easily beatable by many 2.7 and especially 3.0 plus BR tanks, but the fact is that there is such a glut of low-level players at 1.0 to 2.3 BR that you'll be rarely up-tiered. In fact, most of my matches have been when I'm the top BR tank in the game. This said, would I recommend this tank to you? Yes, 100% and 1,000 times over. It's like printing free Silver Lions in RP. It is an absolute gem of a tank, and for just 1300 GE, when not on sale, it's a steal as well. When on sale, forget it. This tank is probably the best value vehicle I've ever tested and purchased in-game, as well as one of the most fun vehicles I've ever played. It has just the right stats where it could easily be considered a 2.3 BR vehicle, but the angles of the armor plus the off shape of the tank make it a puzzle for most players at this BR, which means that you may as well have a cheat code while playing this vehicle. Just don't get flanked. That said, thanks so much everyone. Seriously, it means a ton. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a ton from it. It was a ton of fun to make. That said, if you haven't already, please subscribe to support my channel as it means the world to me. But either way, I'm heading out, so be excellent to each other, and I'll see you all on the other side. Take care everyone.